The Oracle of Omaha, I dare say, knows a thing or two about investing, but when it comes to estate planning, what does he have to say? Well, we're going to talk about it here on this episode of Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short of Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find them online, welcomehomefp.com. The link's right there in the podcast description. It'll take you right there. Set up a time to speak with them, get to know them a little bit better, have that conversation, begin the planning process. As a reminder, it is a complimentary consultation. That is welcomehomefp.com. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined not by the Oracles of Omaha, but the something clever, the Oracles of Richmond. Ralph and Tim, glad to be with you. How are you doing?
Doing good. Fine. That doesn't roll off the tongue.
It doesn't. I was trying to think of one that started with an R, and it just I caught myself off guard there. But
we'll save that for the next intro.
I've been called a lot of things, but not an Oracle of Richmond, Chris.
Well, you can't say that anymore. But I'll continue to workshop that one. But we are talking about Warren Buffett on this episode here because, you know, he is very, I'd say he's pretty successful when it comes to investing. You know, he's worth quite a bit. He still talks a lot about investing, even at the age of 94, but he has recently shared his thoughts on estate planning as well. I think he's famous for saying he wanted to leave his children with enough so that they could do anything, but not so much that they would do nothing. But recently he said, quote, "Create a will and have your children read it before you sign it. You must talk about your wishes before you die. If you want money to go to charity or help one child out more than the other, it shouldn't be a surprise after you die." Now, I know talking finances is, even among family members, sometimes, you know, a little taboo. And sometimes parents are very private about how much money they have and want to keep it a secret. What are your thoughts on what Mr. Buffett said here? Do you agree with him?
I would say for some family dynamics, after you pass away, it's probably better that you have everything in place because guess what? Nobody wants to talk about this before it happens, but you're going to relieve a lot of stress and anxiety for those you leave behind because that's what it's all about. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how to get it over to the people that you want it to go to the most tax efficient way of doing it. Because if you don't have a will, if you don't have any trust set up, guess what? You have a plan, whether you know it or not. It's called the plan by the government because they're going to be able to come in and set up, you got to go through probate. You got to make sure this is all working out under their plan, not your plan. So let's say that you didn't have a plan and you wanted little Johnny to have 90% of what you've got because he's got a family of 15 kids that's going to need more help than the other one that's a doctor that doesn't have any kids. So
right.
You kind of have to map that out for them. But the doctor may say, I don't really like that plan, so you may contest it. So let's make sure you have some kind of control over your finances that you've earned over your lifetime to where it needs to go to, because it's your money, really. And we have clients that come in, and I'll tell you a little story is, you know, we have clients that will come in and say, I don't need this money because I've got enough money come in and do the things I want to do, but I want all of my 401ks to go over or IRAs to go over to our kids. I said, well, that's fine. You can do that since you don't need the money, but that government that we just got through talking about has a plan for you. You have to start taking money out at a certain age. And they're so nice and generous to us. They're even going to tell us what you have to take out. Okay. So that's one thing that we talk to people about. But the other thing, we've got people that will come in and say, I've earned this money. It's my money and I'm going to spend it every last dime. I said, well, he said, can you help me do that? I'm like, yeah, we can do that. But I said, you got to answer one question for me. And that question is, tell me the date of your death, and it's nothing but a simple mathematical equation at that point in time.
That easy.
And guess what, Chris? Nobody has yet told me the exact date of their death.
Yeah, and I would like to address little Johnny.
15 kids.
We need to have a discussion on what's going on there. It sounds like little Johnny might need some financial help with raising those 15 kids. But I think one of the best strategies, too, is leaving all of your financial assets to your youngest son, too. So, Chris, I am the youngest son. But anyway,
I am, too, actually. So, yeah, no, I'm all about that.
So Chris is on board with that plan. No, I'm teasing. So it's important, you know, in our line of work, there's a lot of, like you talked about finances being taboo. And I think, you know, anytime we talk about life insurance or death or estate planning, everybody kind of puts the brakes up because they don't want to talk about the fact that we're all mere mortals, right? eventually we're all going to die. You're not going to live for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know when our expiration date, quote unquote, is, but it's really important because, I think they say it best is everybody should know what's going to happen before you die. Because, in little Johnny's case with 15 kids, I'm pretty sure one of those 15 kids is not going to agree with the plan. So It's really important to make sure that little Johnny has that discussion first, because you don't want anything to be a surprise. And we all love our kids. We love our grandkids. We just want to make sure that the plan fits right. And also, too, is maybe not just death, but hey, what if somebody's got to take care of you? What if you have to go into a nursing home? What if, God forbid, you get in a car accident and you become a vegetable? Who's going to take care of all of those? And I think that's often overlooked because we're not always guaranteed to die of a massive heart attack out of the blue or fall asleep and never wake up.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some bad times to where you can't make those decisions, and you need to make sure that, okay, hey, like for me in particular, I've got 3 kids, all right? Who do I want to take control over my finances if something happens to me or medical decisions? Because everybody is different. Every child is different. So you've got to make sure that person, not only do you have that person or people assigned to that task, but they know it, because they don't want to be caught off guard with that either.
Right.
So you got to have those discussions, because, you don't look at it on the other side. My daughter's the oldest of my kids, and if I tell her to take care of everything and she didn't know it, and then all of a sudden I have that car accident and I'm in a coma and, it's 30 days past, she's going to struggle with knowing what I wanted. Right. So, it's important, and it's very big and important discussions to have. And so many people don't do it. And if you don't do it when it's the right time, then your plan just might not work out.
Yeah, I would say also to a lot of people, it is your plan. You've got to decide what you want to do. It may be a difficult decision, but this plan, once you set it in place, does not mean that you don't look at it
Mm-hmm.
over every so often, because guess what? I'll give you a perfect example of a client that had been living with his girlfriend for about 30 years in his house, and she got sick, was in the hospital. He went home after about 5 or 6 days in the hospital to go take a shower and never came back. So they went to look for him. And while she was in a coma, he went home, take a shower to come back, and he passed away there.
Oh, my goodness.
And guess what? She was there in the hospital, and she finally passed away in the hospital. But the house that they've been living in for 30-some years was in his ex-wife's name and his name. So guess what? If she had continued to live, the girlfriend would have never had a place to live. So those are things that you have to, those are real life stories. That's not anything we just kind of make up. But you have to make sure, if you have life changes during your lifetime, if you get a divorce, if one of your children dies and you had them as a beneficiary, who's going to get that? So those are all things that you need to make sure. It's a very difficult situation, but if you've got contracts that has beneficiaries on it, like your 401ks, your IRAs, your life insurance contract, make sure you take care of that. The other question I would have to a lot of people, if they start thinking about where this money needs to go to, check it out, particularly, and as people get older, they are more susceptible to emotional decisions. And if you have some charity that comes to you and say, we do this and we do that, we want to, let's make a charitable contribution here. How do you know if that's a real charity or not?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know where the money's going? So you need to make sure you check those things out. If you have to talk to your children about it and say, listen, I'm thinking about doing this. Let's go ahead and have this conversation. And this is the reason why I want to do it.
We understand it's not always the most, not even not always, it's not the most pleasant conversation to have, talking about your own mortality and what you want to have done, once you graduate from this world onto the next one. But I think we also have all experienced, or we've heard stories of someone who did not have a proper plan in place, and the family division that happened after that. I've experienced it firsthand, not to air dirty laundry out there. And with proper planning ahead of time, it can be avoided. It could be mitigated. Perhaps there are, like in the case of Johnny, he's certainly going to need a little bit more assistance than the doctor, having that discussion ahead of time so that they may not necessarily agree with it, but at least they know ahead of time. It can prevent some of that resentment. Sometimes there are children who need a little bit of protecting from themselves, or whatever the situation may be, making sure that your wishes are executed the way it wants to be, and it's not caught off guard because the loss of a loved one is already an emotional time. Adding that confusion on top of it, just compounding, it can be avoided with a proper plan.
Let me ask you a question, Chris.
Yeah.
If you inherited $1 million when you were 22 years old, would you spend it any different than you would at 80 years old?
Absolutely.
You probably wouldn't have that $1 million if you got it at 25 by the time right?
I probably wouldn't have it by the time I was 26, if I'm being honest.
Okay. 30 days. I give you 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Dad didn't bring this one up, but we have a client who recently passed away, and not their dirty laundry, but kind of if we go to having the conversation before that day happens, so everybody's on the same page, because there was one sibling that was taking advantage of her mother who passed, and nobody knew about it until after it happened. So I think that's important to know is, okay, hey, going back to me with my 3, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So then if things come up, they know, hey, what are you doing, little Johnny? Why are we still making these type of changes? So it's very important. And I think I'll kind of wrap this up here with one of the points that Warren Buffett had was live your life that you want to live and tell your kids that you're proud of them. So I think that's part of that conversation that you can have is, okay, hey, look, we all know we're going to pass at some point in time. This is what we want done. This is what I would like you guys to take care of, and have those conversations.
As they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's certainly worth, a lot of preventing a lot of heartache down the line. And as you guys mentioned, it is not something that, it should be a set and forget situation, because there are going to be changes in life, the loss of a loved one, of a beneficiary, a divorce, a separation, the birth of one, or perhaps, you do find another reason to allocate that money elsewhere. So having this plan is something that, as part of the retirement plan, will be updated periodically. And it's something that the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners will continue to review during their reviews with you. But it is all part of that planning process, getting to retirement, through retirement, and as importantly, beyond retirement. And it all starts with setting up a time to speak with them. You can go to welcomehomefp.com. That is the website. So you can find out more about Ralph and Tim, the entire team, set up a time to speak with them, find out about how to attend their First Friday events. It's all there for you. And the link is right there in the podcast description. As always, we appreciate you joining us here on this episode of Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Appreciate the time. As we wrap up here, I do want to leave you with a final word.
Thank you, Chris. So, this is a conversation that needs to be done sooner rather than later. And I feel like a lot of people don't want to, but if there are guarantees in life, and we know 2 of them is death and taxes, right? So why aren't we preparing for those? Bring your kids in on the conversations. If you become a client, we like to meet your kids, beneficiaries, that type of thing, so we can make sure that everybody's on the same page. So visit our website, give us a call. We'd love the opportunity to bring you into the office. Once again, thanks for listening and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.